Now, Michael Wickett has been a professional speaker, trainer, and success coach for more than 25 years. He conducts programs regularly on leadership, selling skills, customer service, and peak performance.
I think he's very good. I've heard him before.
It kept me interested and really made me want to participate.
I liked it. It was great.
His core business is creating professional sales cultures through customized sales training and coaching. In addition, he has recorded 24 audio learning programs that have assisted many salespeople to break industry records. Our speaker hosted a documentary for public television entitled Michigan and the American Dream. In addition, he developed and teaches a 6-session program on success and life skills for recovering alcoholics at the Salvation Army.
He is very down to earth and he comes from the heart. He speaks a lot about personal experience.
He's easy listening. He's funny.
It was wonderful. Very informative.
His impressive list of corporate clients includes State Farm, 3M, Century 21, Nestle, and IBM.
He's not too technical. He's, everyday guy, and I like that about him.
Informative, practical, something that I think everybody can take something home with.
I think he speaks from the heart, and that's the most important thing. I think that really comes through.
I have been hiring professional speakers and trainers since 1988, and I can confidently say that today we are privileged to have one of the very best speakers and trainers in the world. Please join me in welcoming Michael Wickett.
That was good. Welcome, Michael. Thank you for saying that. Good evening. Good evening. I'd like you to imagine it's 90 days from today. You bounce out of bed, you feel fabulous. You think about all the wonderful successes that have built up in your life and how things have changed. And you think back 90 days and think, boy, I had all those challenges and business was down and now I'm in a whole new dimension of success. And you go out into the day and you're making more sales and more deals and the checks come in and you're doing better than you have in a long time. You think about your personal life. And because you're more positive and you're more focused, that energy carries over in your personal life and things are going really well there. And then you think back to tonight and say, I am so grateful that I went to that session because my life is better than it has been in a long time. How many of you want to be in that picture? Could we see the hands? Guess what? Everybody here can be in that picture. Now, if any of us keep doing what we've been doing, we get the very same results we've been getting. That's not a criticism, it's just a fact. But if we're willing to make a few changes, not that they have to be dramatic, but if we're willing to see life differently and maybe develop some new skills and continue to press forward, we can create some wonderful breakthroughs. And I want to give you some fantastic news. I don't know if you know it or not, but everybody here has 18 billion readily available brain cells. How many of you did not know that? Go home and tell your spouse how lucky they are to be married to somebody who has 18 billion readily available brain cells, and that's enough for several lifetimes. Now, it is not always easy to access all that brain power. Because what happens is we get conditioned by life as children, and then we grow up, and we get conditioned to expectations. Now, people that really want to do great things with their life, they find out how to access their brain cells, and that's what we're going to talk about tonight. So wherever you are in your life, if you want different outcomes, you have to be different. I'll say that one more time. The mind doesn't always get that. If you want different outcomes, you have to be different, meaning you have to think differently and especially feel and expect. Expectation is the single most powerful thing in life. Some would call it belief. So if you want your business to be different, or your relationships, or your health, whatever it is, you have to create a different vision, and then you have to begin to expect something different to happen. Dallas, Texas. Carl Sewell Jr. owned Sewell Village Cadillac. Out of 3 Cadillac dealers in Dallas, they were number 3. Now, even though they were number 3 out of 3, there's no such thing as a poor Cadillac dealer. How many of you are with me on that? Yeah, there are not many Cadillac dealers struggling. They were number 3 out of 3. He was a wealthy guy. He went to Japan for an industry conference several years ago. An executive from the highest rated car company in the world, which is Toyota, got up to speak to thousands of people from all over the world who came to get ideas on how to grow their car business. And the executive from Toyota got up in front of thousands of people, and here's what he said. He stepped up to the mic and said, "Ichiban, Ichiban, Ichiban," and sat down. Carl Sewell didn't know what he'd said. Turned to the guy and said, what is Ichiban? What does it mean? It's Japanese for a passionate commitment to being the best. He said they don't fool around at Toyota. A passionate commitment to being the best. So that means you would make sure you're physically fit. You'd hang around with positive people. You'd set big goals. You'd listen to positive material. You'd read books. And you'd make a commitment to an improved life. Maybe it's being the best. Maybe it's being the best mother or the best father or the best spouse or the best salesperson or the best manager you can be. Because I'm not one for everybody competing. Because only one person can be number one in a company, so to speak. Well, Carl Sewell realized while he was at that conference that although they had an excellent company, they had never made that kind of commitment. And while he was there over 10 days or whatever, he made a decision they were going to become the best Cadillac dealer in Texas, whatever it took. And he just got re-inspired. And he came back and he called a company meeting and he announced the objectives. We don't want to be number 3 in Dallas anymore. We want to be number 1 in Dallas. Now, one of the things about great managers is they get feedback from their people. They don't talk down and they don't give orders. They get feedback. How can I be a better manager for you? How can we improve service? How can we grow? How can we improve esprit de corps? So he announced to the company they wanted to become the number 1 dealer in Dallas. And a cheer went up. And he said, we're going to have parties and we're going to have rewards and we got a suggestion box and we want your feedback because I'm not sure how to do that. And our executive team doesn't have all the answers. So people started putting in suggestions. Somebody said, let's open on Saturday. We can do more business because back then they weren't open on Saturday, just a few years ago. Somebody else came up with a brilliant idea and said, let's have a couple of 800 numbers to call in number 1. Cadillacs don't always break down between 8 and 5, so if somebody's Cadillac breaks down late at night, middle of the night, they can call and we'll go out and bring them another car. Nobody does that. Somebody else said, we need a line where people can complain. You want to listen to customer complaints. How many of you agree? You can grow your company and become better by listening to customer complaints. Almost 80% of the time when people complain and are listened to, they stay. They don't quit. Well, there was a whole new energy at Sewell Village Cadillac. Service went up. Teamwork went up. Attitudes went up. People had more energy, more vitality. Carl Sewell had more energy and vitality. Within a year, they were number 2, and 2 years later, they were the number 1 Cadillac dealer in Dallas. But guess what? And this is a point for today. The momentum, the energy, the commitment to do something wonderful doesn't just end when you get there. You see what I'm saying? They went on to become everybody? 1 in? No, they became number 1 in Texas. They went on to become number 1 in America. The number 1 Cadillac dealer in all of America. Wow is right. In other words, by all of the standards that General Motors measured dealers, they were number 1. In sales, in profitability, in quality, in reputation, the number 1 Cadillac dealer. And guess what? That goal was wrought on a day exactly like today, where a man was sitting in a seat and said, I want to do something great. How many of you are ready to do something greater than you've ever done and make more money and be... Okay. That is a passionate commitment, and if you will just follow through on that, one day at a time. Ichiban. Ichiban. What's it say, everybody? And it means being the... Now, I've done a lot of studying in my life, not just business principles, but spiritual principles and visualization and forgiveness principles. I mean, lots of different things. You know, I really was a wounded child, like thousands of kids in alcoholic homes, but I mean, I really was. And I really needed to grow and evolve, and, you know, I forgave my parents and moved on in my life and wanted to become a loving person and make a difference. And the point I want to make is you got to be over your past. We're not going to spend a lot of time on this. You got to be at peace with your past. If you're not at peace with your past, it runs your life. It's like the weak link in a chain. It doesn't matter how strong the chain is. So if anybody here has not gotten over your past, and that could have been losing a job, being treated unfairly by a boss, it could have been your childhood. You've got to let it go and bless it. Because the past is what, everybody? It is gone. It is not coming back. How many of you ever lost a big deal that was so important to you? I lost 2 in the last year. But you see, that can derail people. They can be afraid of failure. It's not failure, it's a learning experience. So everybody take a deep breath. Whatever past you've had, whatever they did or didn't do, whatever really hurt you and felt like a horrible disappointment, beginning today, let it go. And bless it. And bless it for the lesson. If you've come in here today with past issues, you don't want to carry them around, okay? I want you to really prosper. That's not what the seminar is about, but the point is to clean that up, because I want you to have your best year ever. Now, the most powerful thing in life is a mindset, human thought. And the most powerful thing in the world is the focus you take and what you see for yourself and what you expect. I mean, we see people in the same family. One struggles all their life, one becomes rich, one goes through 2 divorces, one has a fabulous marriage. I mean, it's just in the same family. Because life is an individual do-it-yourself project. And the good news is you have how many brain cells, everybody? 18 billion. Now that's enough for several lifetimes. Now what does it take? Well, a 99% commitment is the same as what, everybody? 0. It's 0. That's like, I'll try. It's either I will or I won't. There's only 2 kinds of commitments. There's 100% and there's 0. If you don't have 100%, let me just say, sometimes people won't commit themselves because they don't know how. Now, if you knew how, you'd be doing it. Right? It isn't about figuring out how. It's about discovering and focusing on what you want, and the subconscious mind figures out how. Everybody hear that? So forget about the details. The universe handles the details. Somebody maybe has a new business here and you want to do something great in the world, make a contribution. You could have sleepless nights thinking, how will I get customers? How will I do it? Forget how. Get the feeling, the energy, the vitality of doing it, and you will attract to yourself the how, the breakthroughs. It's amazing. See, the universe supports our vision. Everybody hear that? Now, if somebody has a vision about struggle because their parents taught them that, the universe supports that. If somebody believes marriage is a struggle, marriage is tough, relationships are difficult, all women are nags, all men cheat, whatever it is you believe becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. And the universe supports you totally in whatever you believe. And for whatever reason, see, I never had a lot of self-confidence, although when I took the Carnegie course, it went up. I love speaking. After I did charity work and I said, I want to do this. I didn't know it couldn't be done. It's astonishing. And I've been just enormously blessed, but I've never lost the vision. And it wasn't about being smart. I never was a brilliant guy. I have no problem saying that. You know, I'm an ordinary person, wrong side of the tracks, been developing extraordinary skills for 35 years, and I'm real comfortable saying that. I really do love learning. So what I'm saying to you is you can create a vision today with your love for your life, and if you hold that vision and feel that vision, I promise you that all the details will get handled, okay? And you will draw it into your life. And your past has no bearing. Now, here's my case on that. There are people all over America who are on their second marriage that are gloriously happy. I know 3 people married 20-some years on their third marriage and are gloriously happy. Now, the reason I make the point is any failure in the past has no bearing on what we can become, thank God. But I really mean it. That's a $50 fine for charity, okay. But the past is gone. And so we can move on and have a wonderful life and a new dimension of success and a happy marriage or whatever it is you want, regardless of the past. How many of you get that? Now, how do you create that and set that into motion? You have to get a brand new, it begins with a V. What, everybody? A brand new vision of how you'd like to do, and that's why we mentally rehearse. We practice the life we want. We get quiet, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. We go to level, you learn to relax, and you visualize your ideal life. As if you're in a 3-act play and you're playing the lead role. You visualize the success and the checks and the money and the relationships and everything you want. Because I'm going to tell you with all love of my heart, if you don't see it with your mind, you'll never see it with your eyes. Nothing ever shows up. So this is why today it's up to you to generate some new ideas and some new breakthroughs. Tony Robbins, in my opinion, is one of the brightest people on the planet. And Tony has a very famous expression that says, success leaves clues. And that means if there's anything you want to do, find out people who are doing it at the level you want to be at and model their behavior. Success always leaves clues. IBM was the highest rated customer service organization in the world for over 25 years, beginning in the 60s. The number one customer service organizations in the world, 68% profit, the most profitable company in the world, in addition to the number one service organization. And Buck Rogers, Charles Buck Rogers, is that a great name for a corporate guy? Buck Rogers was the executive vice president of sales and service and managed 40,000 people when they were number one for most of those years. And he became legendary. And he's the only manager I know of in history who was ever considered one of the great salespeople in history. In other words, he was considered one of the greatest managers ever and one of the greatest salespeople. I don't know anybody else who got both designations, although someone may have. And he retired. And they had him on a talk show. And they said, Buck, you did some amazing things. Your company was number one in the world for 25 consecutive years. You're the most profitable company in the world, selling the most expensive equipment in the world, I might add. What were some of the secrets? And he thought for a moment, and he said, well, my favorite philosophy is this. He said, we don't ask people to do one thing 100% better or 50% better. That's too much pressure. He said, we ask people to do 1,000 things 1% better. I'll never forget the first time I heard that. It's so doable. How many of you agree that's doable? You can do 10 things 1 or 2 or 3% better in the next week or 2 or a month and change your whole life. So continuous improvement is the key. Toyota became the highest rated car company in the world by practicing Kaizen. And Kaizen means constant, incremental improvement. That's how Toyota, and they're still number one, by the way. They've been number one since '94. Not a customer of mine, but I certainly respect what they do. Mazda at one time had 100-year goals, 100-year written goals for self-improvement. No wonder some of the Japanese companies have done so well. Upper right, crystal clear what? More money is not clear. Better marriage is not clear. Get closer to my teenager is not clear. Be healthier is not clear. Weekly date with my spouse to dialogue, that's clear. Listening to my child about their goals and dreams, that's clear. Being able to exercise 22 minutes, that's, you see what I'm saying? Lower right, to find opportunities. When people are talking about the layoffs and the problems and the market's down and housing is down, but there's still realtors out there doing well, there's insurance people doing well. How many of you are doing fairly well? How many of you are ready to do better? How many of you know you got enough potential here to do better? That's the key. So to find the tremendous opportunities, and I swear to you, I've suffered a lot in my life without going into great detail. And I take responsibility for it. I've suffered a lot in my life. And many years ago, somebody coached me and supported me and helped me to understand that with a negative focus I could only have negative results, and I started looking for opportunities. And I've been looking for opportunities for over 30 years. If I have a challenge, I will not blame anybody. And I won't beat up on myself. I'll take responsibility. I may have to take a deep breath. I may need to go for a walk for a week straight. But I really don't beat up on myself, but I'm absolutely responsible. When I got divorced 19 years ago, I took 100% responsibility. She loved that. Oh, thought it would get anyway. And have never blamed her once. Never. Nobody ever heard me criticize my former wife. Why? Because we were both responsible. There's no one to blame. Nobody would have wanted to have been married to me then. Now, I don't know. But then, nobody would. You know, I was an egotistical, unhappy guy with low self-esteem. So the point is, out of that, and out of my alcoholic childhood, I grew enormously. That's why I've had 10 coaches. And we'll have a couple more in the next year. I love learning. I want to be all I can be. I want to give all I can give. You know, I'm now devoted to 3 charities, which I just love. What an opportunity to go back into the city and serve kids who used to be me. Who used to be me. No father, in pain. So the point is, if you came in here with challenges today, before we leave this session, look for the opportunity. Because if you look, you'll find it. You can find a fabulous opportunity after a divorce or a breakup if you don't blame them. If you blame them, you find nothing. If you've been missing sales, it's a fabulous opportunity to become a better salesperson, ask better questions, create more value, use better evidence. You see? So always, wherever we have painful situations, now I'm conditioned this way, but find the opportunity. Don't blame anybody and don't beat up yourself. Find the opportunity. You got 18 billion brain cells. And the lower left. What does the lower left say, everybody? Life is an individual, do-it-yourself project every 24 hours. Now the power in life is today. One of the geniuses who lived in our age was Dale Carnegie. How many of you took a Dale Carnegie course? Largest leadership, personal growth course in the world. Nothing's even close. He was brilliant. He was brilliant because of the simplicity of the ideas. He wrote the greatest book ever on controlling worry and stress. How many of you ever feel stress or worry? You know what that does to our health? It destroys the cells of our body. It really creates illness. I don't want to scare anybody, but I'm just telling you. Now, is there a little bit of stress in life? Yeah, but anything more than a little bit. Mr. Carnegie wrote that book, How to Stop Worrying and Start Living, and the greatest formula ever was live in day-tight compartments. The past is gone. It's not coming back. Make peace with it. Learn from it, forgive it, and get it. And the future it's an unknown promise. We don't even know what it's going to come. So one day at a time. Day-tight compartments. Now what you could do every day is, for example, you could take a 3x5 card and you could think about your day and you could write a goal for the day. I'm going to close a deal today. I'm going to get a listing today. Okay? So from sunrise to sunset, everybody can live positively, purely, and lovingly. You might not be able to do it for 30 days, but you can do it one day at a time. Now, by living one day at a time and focusing all your energy into the day, like when you're working, be at work, when you're with your family, etc. But by living one day at a time, and just for today, there's not the stress of what's going to happen next week. What if we don't get the content? You see what I'm saying? And you're so much more powerful and so much more alert. So there we go. So the very first step is to set very big what, everybody? Goals. Big goals. Now, how many of you have written goals? Okay, that's less than half. That's fine. That wasn't a judgment. What I'm going to ask you to do today is to raise the bar for your career. And forget, what's the word? Say how. Forget how. You don't have to know how. You just have to know what you want. Subconscious mind, in its brilliance, figures out how. But you have to be clear on what you want your mind to produce for you, because nothing shows up. So we want to set big goals. You know, I set goals. I mean, I'm not the greatest example. My gosh, I graduated 62nd in a class of 65. My therapist said, don't say that anymore. But I did. I mean, I did. I St. Gregory High School. Seriously, a D average. Sister Rose de Lourdes, I think she wanted to not be around me anymore, so she graduated me. I think Sister Rose, St. Gregory broke all the records. But I really did. I really was a poor student because of what was at home. I couldn't concentrate, couldn't sleep at night, but nobody ever asked, so they didn't know. But the point is that I never expected much from life. And then years later, when I took a Dale Carnegie course and took a sales course and started learning and growing and heard Jack Boland at Unity and just really fell in love with life, I set goals that were somewhat ridiculous. 58 of them, and got all but 3. And when I set them, I didn't have a clue how I would get most of them. But when Jack was teaching the session, he said, forget how. Subconscious mind will figure out. And I want to say that to you. I want to really, really, really encourage you. I want you to write down, by the time we leave here today, I want you to write down the biggest business goal you've ever written down. Now, I don't mean write down something you can't believe in that nobody's ever done unless it's what you think you can do. But I want you to write down a big business goal and forget how, and start to act as if it's going to happen. And what will happen is your subconscious mind will give you ideas and will attract people in. It'll attract all the people you need to help you get where you want to go, because that's how life works. So the very first step is to set big goals that motivate us. Everybody has their hand out. Let's look at the cover. Key points. As a choice-making being, you decide your future. The best way to do that is write it down. Don't say, I know what I want. Well, the mind thinks like 50,000 thoughts a day, and things we think we want get lost. You want to write it down, get clear, so you can put energy into it. Number 2, create an exciting, powerful life vision by writing how many, everybody? 100 life goals. It will change your life, trust me. Big goals, little goals, serious goals, fun goals, all the areas of life. It will change your life because it will create a whole new vision of possibilities. It will change your energy. Now, all of us are walking magnets all the time. Whether we like it or don't like it, whether we agree or don't, we're walking magnets by the energy we carry around. The great law of life is not the law of luck. The great law of life is the law of, it begins with an A, attraction. That is the great law. Whether you're Catholic or Jewish or Hindu or atheist, whatever you believe, the great law of life is the law of attraction. It is done unto us as you believe. The Bible, same thing. And so by having a belief, even though you don't know how you're going to do it, you begin to attract it at the unconscious level. Number 3. What does number 3 say, everybody?
Totally unrealistic.
Circle it. Circle it. Put a star there. Now, many people have heard you need to be realistic. You don't want to be disappointed. Failure. Do you know what being realistic means? Failure. It means looking ahead at more of what you already have, or a fraction more. There's no breakthroughs in that. Believe me, I've lived through this. I've coached hundreds of people that change their life with this. You want to be somewhat unrealistic. In other words, you want to write down what is in your heart, not what your mother or father thinks you ought to do, or your brother or your sister. It's what feels fabulous to you. You want to write it down and let those 18 billion brain cells go to work attracting the people, the events, the learning, the breakthroughs you need to get where you want to go. Because life is always working that way. It's an individual do-it-yourself project. Whatever you are focused on doing, you will draw the resources, if that's the word. You'll draw the people and the resources to help you get where you want to go. The power of God within you, because so many of us here believe in God. If you don't believe in God, then you could say the creative intelligence within you, or however you want to say. But the power of God within us works through our beliefs, right? It does not go outside our beliefs and create something we don't believe in. And my thought is to create a very compelling, I love that word. How many of you want to have a compelling future? You need a lot of very exciting turn-you-on goals. It doesn't matter what they are. There are people here that have goals for going out and serving kids. People here have goals for being a speaker, selling more real estate, selling insurance, selling cars. It doesn't matter what they are. You need to have goals that turn you on and compel you and move you forward. My goal is to take my career to a whole new level, which I'm working on a couple of big deals. That's my goal. And I've defined that, so it doesn't matter what it is. But a compelling future and charity work. And having a loving relationship and possibly a marriage. Having a loving relationship. Well, you know what? Maybe that was never scary for you, but it was a biggie for me. I've been divorced 19 years. But no, that's, being in a loving relationship. The past is gone with all the fears and all the stuff, and being a great dad to my daughter, and I've got 5 fabulous friends. People say you got 1 or 2, I got 5. Fabulous friends, male friends and a few female friends, but fabulous friends. I'm healthy. I love travel. So I've got a compelling future. This is my compelling future. Several hundred typewritten life goals, and then I write new ones in there. Now, if you think that that's a lot, I've got like 150 travel goals because that is my passion. I have every hotel, every festival, every city, every bed and breakfast, every world event because I love travel. Jack Boland, the Church of Today, Unity, I used to go to, and he did a session on goal setting. And it changed my whole life. And he told a story of a 15-year-old boy named John Goddard. How many of you heard the John Goddard story? Just a couple. 15-year-old boy, John Goddard, was a Boy Scout. was in his bedroom one day, and his father's best friend was visiting his dad, John Sr. And he heard his dad, on a rainy Sunday afternoon in the 40s, he heard his dad say, his dad's best friend say, you know, John, if I had my life to live over again, there's so many things I would have done differently. And his dad said, like what? And he started naming those things. You know, the guy's like 50, 60 and saying, I wish I could live my life over. Well, 15-year-old John Goddard heard that and thought, I don't want that to be me. Well, he grabbed a pad and he wrote, you know, my life's dreams. He started writing. He wrote for days and days and days and days. And 15-year-old John Goddard came up with 127 life goals. Visit every country in the world, run a 5-minute mile, do 100 push-ups, climb 14 major mountains in the world, beginning with Everest, explore 22 major rivers, light a match with a 22, milk a rattlesnake, read every word in the Bible, teach a class on the Bible, be happily married, raise kids, 127 goals all over the map, learn 3 languages, and 27 years later, at the age of 42, John Goddard had accomplished 108 of the 127 goals he wrote down. He was on the cover of Life magazine, I believe it was 1972, and the feature story, the cover said, "One man's life of no regrets." John Goddard never had a midlife crisis. How many of you know someone, not yourself, but how many of you know someone who's having a midlife crisis? They don't have any goals. They don't have any motivation. They don't have a reason to get out of bed in the morning. And people cannot create that for us. Your spouse can't create that for you. Your parents, your boss, people can't create that. To this day, I believe he's accomplished 118 of the 127 he wrote down. Visited the Great Wall of China, rafted he explored 22 major rivers. He became the first person to kayak 4,000 miles the length of the Nile River. His best friend was killed in a hailstorm. And they had to battle animals. I mean, who would kayak the length of the Nile? But he did. These sandstorms and wild bees and ants and animals. Oh, gosh. But he did. And he wrote a book, you know, kayaks down the Nile, and he became famous, and he has spoken all over the world at adventure clubs and things. But I heard that at church, and I went home and sat on a Naugahyde couch. I was renting one room, 1977, and I wrote my life goals, and I started writing. Now, Jack Boland, who was teaching the session, said, forget how, just dream big, get in that space, write down what you want to have, do, become, or experience. I wrote 58 goals. I looked at those goals, and I thought, now, how am I ever going to, and then his words came back to me. And he said, just keep looking at the list and follow your intuition and take action when appropriate. And guess what? By the early 90s, which was maybe 14 years later, I had all but 4. Astonishing. Astonishing. And when I went back to visit Sister Rose DeLourdes, she said I didn't get any smarter. I said, Sister, thank you so much. I appreciate it. She said, but Michael, you're a dear boy. You were a good altar boy. Oh, thank you, Sister. I appreciate that. It wasn't about being smarter. IQ is overrated. IQ is overrated. It's EQ. Because everything in life is energy, not IQ. They know that now. It's kind of like 15 years ago, aspirin was fabulous, and then 5 years ago they weren't sure, and now vitamin C is fabulous. You know, it just depends who's doing the study. You can create evidence to support anything. Yes. So I wrote those things down. Me who never accomplished anything. And now I have 3 left out of the 58. But I wrote a new life goal sheet in 1992. So what I want to say to you is, you don't want to look at your circumstances and say, that's me. That's what I can do. Because you're stuck with that. You with me? If your history in relationships has been unsuccessful, you could say, well, you know, I don't trust men, I don't trust women. You're stuck with it. That's your reality. You don't want to do that. You don't want to give up the ability to dream and think big. Now, you might want to take action and learn and improve. For example, if you're not making enough sales, you need to learn how to sell. You may need a coach. If you've had relationship problems, you need to build your self-esteem and learn more about how to communicate, listen, and get along with the opposite sex. For example. Say, wherever there's pain, there's opportunity. Well, anyway, setting goals, that list goes with me all over the world, and I don't know if you can see the yellow. The yellow means I accomplished it. I think I've accomplished 50 or 60. Some of them have been just profound. So what I want to do is, would everybody open your worksheet? Your workbook. How many goals there's room for how many goals in there, everybody? 100. So the assignment is, And this will change your life. Might take you a week, might take you 3 or 4 weeks, might take you 2 months, it doesn't matter. How many life goals do you want to write down? What, everybody? 100. Big goals, little goals, serious goals, fun goals. The reason is it gives purpose to your life. Only you can create a sense of purpose. And you know, when you have a sense of, because life is not about intellectual brilliance, it's about energy. It doesn't matter how much you earn or where you get to if it's fulfilling for you. But you want to live life on purpose, your purpose. That list has brought miracles into my life, and I don't use that term very often, but it's brought incredible things and breakthroughs into my life. That list I wrote in 1992. Because I was completely unrealistic. If Sister Rose Dolores had seen that list, she would have fainted. No, I'm serious. I wrote down things that have never been done in the speaking business. Still working on some of them. But it's so profoundly powerful to do that. Now I want you to think of your business and what you want more than anything else in the world, and I want you to quantify it and write it number 1. Now, how much would you love to earn, even though you may not know how you're going to be able to do it, even though you may not know what will happen in the market? How much would you love to earn maybe in the next 2, 3, 5 years? Or invest, or write it down. Forget how, forget how, forget how, forget how. What is something wonderful you want to do with your business? And if earnings is not the best criteria, then you write down what is. Very specific. More money is not specific. More sales is not specific. Very specific. 30 deals this year as a realtor, a salesperson. You know, 80,000 income, 150,000 income. Whatever it is. The mind responds to specificity. What is that word, everybody? What's that word? Specificity. Very, very specific. Everybody in the world wants a better marriage. What does that mean? A weekly date so we'll communicate. Dr. Robert Schuller had a Monday date with his wife for 50 years. And that's where they talked and ironed things out and expressed their love for each other. And, you know, I'm just giving an example. When I studied fathers, because I told you I didn't have a loving father, but I did forgive my dad a long time ago. And he did the best he could like everybody else. Hal Wickett was a good person. He was a good person. He was an alcoholic. He was a good person. When I studied fathers, people who were great fathers, they got feedback from their kids, which is unheard of with a lot of people because people talk at kids. So over the years, I've just gotten feedback from my fabulous daughter, Kristen. How can I be more loving, and how can I be more supportive? And, you know, and I said, and don't say shop at Somerset Mall. Because that used to be, well, I'm her shopping companion because her mother wouldn't spend the money. That's not a criticism. She knows her mother would, you know, so, but that's okay. So what I'm saying is to be very, very, very clear on what it is you want. Now here's what I'm going to do. And people seem to like this. I'm going to give you some ideas for headlines because I want you to do this. It will transform your life. And I want you to write them across the top or at the bottom or at the bottom. You start at the top. Number 1, goals to do. Goals to do. Live in Europe. Fly on a Gulf Stream plane. I don't want to buy one. I want somebody else to buy it, and I want to fly on one. Attend the Winter Olympics. Learn French. Be on The Tonight Show. How many of you would love to see me on The Tonight Show? Could you write to them in a hurry, please? So those are goals to do. The second one is special trips. Now, I wrote down college football trips, and I've been to 1, 2, 3, 4 different cities to see, because I love college football and high school basketball. And I think it's really powerful to do more of the things you love as opposed to putting them off to 1 week a year. No. Doing things you love, orienting your life so part of your life is doing things you love, is energy, and all of life is energy. Would everybody make a note? All of life is energy. It doesn't matter what you believe, what your educational degree is, all of life is energy. So the different things we can do to have positive energy. Now here's some really good news. You can be positive 51 to 60% of the time and get almost everything you want in life. You don't have to be positive all the time. How many of you are relieved to hear that? As am I. We don't have to be positive all the time. But studies tell us 51 to 60% you're going to get great outcomes. Next, if it fits for you, people you want to meet. I heard Mark Victor Hansen speak 20 years ago, and he said, how many of you have people you want to meet? He said, write them down. If you meet them, you'll attract them in your life, and you'll meet some. So I did. I wanted to meet Michael Crawford, who played the Phantom in London and New York, the Phantom of the Opera, with Sarah Brightman. And I'm English, he's English. He can sing. I sang in the choir, can't sing like he does. But anyway, I wanted to meet him. Now, people would say, now how ridiculous is that? How are you ever going to meet Michael Crawford? I put it on the goal sheet. So, public television calls me to do fundraising because they're going to show a concert with Michael Crawford on video, and they're going to show a concert with Sarah Brightman the next month on video and take pledges, right? So I said, she's come and help us raise money. So she announces that Michael Crawford is coming in the studio for a cocktail party. And the first 10 people that donated $500 a couple, and it was gone like that. I went out to the car and got my goal sheet. Walked up to the vice president, who's still with it. You'll see her on the fundraising all the time. And I said, what does goal number 80 say there? To meet who?
Michael Crawford.
She said, Michael, come as our guest. So 10 people paid $500, and I went as a guest, and I was the last. It worked out pretty well. Yeah, and Sister Rose the Lord said I'd never amount to anything. Give me a break. They'd say $500. Yes, sister, can you hear that? Okay, but anyway. He was fabulous. He was extremely shy. How many of you know who Michael Crawford is and or like his music? He's extremely shy. He's brilliant. Brilliant voice. And I was the last person. He was wonderful. Posed for a picture. He was absolutely just wonderful. Now, you might say that was good fortune. I'm telling you that if you write it down and it shows up, that is not good fortune. That's the law of attraction. So how many of you have somebody you want to meet? Write them down. No matter how ridiculous, how ludicrous, when you plant the seeds, things become enormously possible. Family. How many of you have families? Most everybody. So, how many of you have families? How many of you have family situations you'd like to improve and or have become more loving? Then write it down and be crystal clear. Hear this now. Don't wait for them to change. Hello? How many of you heard that? Yeah, you don't wait for that. Your brother, your sister, your father, your mother, your spouse. Don't wait for them to change. You change. You could be waiting a long time. So if there's something you want to heal, write it down. Write down what you want and start visualizing it. You could be astonished by what could happen. It's absolutely amazing. I've got 14 family goals. Now, most of them are with my daughter, but one of them was to have a healing with my former wife, which we did a long time ago. I made it important. It took 10 months. It took 10 months. We had it, and we've supported each other and befriended each other. You know, our styles sometimes struggle. That's not a criticism of anybody. But I wrote those things down. Travel goals. How many of you love travel? Write a list of travel goals. You know, the desire to go to a beautiful beach or a beautiful place or a play in London or a beautiful hotel can really motivate you, because I love travel. It can really motivate you to earn more money and make more calls and learn more so you can travel more or go on cruises. I worked on a couple cruise ships, and I may have another opportunity to speak aboard a cruise ship. And I love that stuff. I just love world travel. I have over 100 travel, city, hotel, event goals. And I've accomplished about, I don't know, maybe 30, maybe more. I've had some amazing experiences. Then I have a headline here, to visit or experience. And that might be a little different than travel. To visit or experience. Like the Shaw Festival in Niagara-on-the-Lake in New York is on my goal sheet. I think I'm going to get there in the fall. But I'm going to go for 3 or 4 days and go to a whole bunch of plays. It's a beautiful, charming city. It's on the other side of the falls. It's on the Canadian side, I believe. And that's just one of my goals. And lots of other things. Special dinners. Now, I love celebrations and special dinners. One was at Castle Ashby in the English countryside. One was at Tour d'Argent, window table in Paris. It's the oldest restaurant in the world. I went in '98. Window table looking out at Notre Dame. just like it was in the goal sheet. Now I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I got about 8 special dinners that I haven't done yet around the world. A few with special people that I want to celebrate with. 1 or 2 with my daughter. Next, relationship goals. How many of you either want to create an ideal relationship or improve yours? Could we see the hands? You have to be crystal clear on what it is you want and what you want to improve. Now, out of the pain of my divorce many years ago, I went to a relationship weekend. That changed my life. And I went to several levels of that, and I have a goal to go to a 3rd level. But I became a much more sensitive human being and really began to understand that women were my sisters on this earth, as many of the men did there. It was really profound. So, be very clear on relationship goals. Want to communicate better. Now here's my suggestion. And I'm not a relationship expert. My suggestion, but I have huge self-esteem background and communication background. My suggestion would be that you start with you as opposed to trying to change somebody else. I want to be a better listener. I'm going to raise my self-esteem. I'm going to be more accepting. I'm going to find a way to be more accepting to my spouse and my kids. And that alone will be fabulous. If you just get the criticism out. Criticism doesn't work unless they ask. It doesn't work. People feel awful. In fact, kids who are criticized remember it 40 years later. They'll remember children, ACOA kids, adult children of alcoholics, 45 years later they can remember the criticism and the yelling and the screaming, the things that happened when they were little kids. It's not good. So set goals for you becoming more loving and more present and more alive and more alert, okay? Almost done? Material goals. How many of you have some material things you want to buy? Absolutely material. It's very, very good. It's just fine. It's part of life. We live in a material universe. In fact, a special material goal, it could be a car, it could be a dream house for the family, a dream vacation, a couple of months off in the summer could really motivate you to continue to improve, to make more calls, to not give up. Depending. Business goals. How many of you want to improve your business and are clear where you want to get to? Could we see the hands? So you have a very specific number? You've got to be very, very, very specific. Health goals. How many of you understand that if you're not healthy, you're going to be very limited? Yeah. Now, we're the fattest country in the world. That is not an indictment of anybody. We are the fattest country in the world. And interestingly enough, I think we're a fabulous country. How many of you agree? Thank you. Did you know the World Health Association says we are the 35th healthiest country in the world? 35th. Illness is rampant. Obesity is rampant. Teenage obesity, it's just rampant. Now, it's not a criticism. I don't even know what obesity is. I mean, it's not like, well, if you're 30 pounds over, I don't know. But we're not a healthy country. So what I'm going to say to you is, you want to have a great life, you need to take care of yourself. You don't have to be a perfectionist. You need some aerobic fitness, and you've got to get off the American fast food diet. Sugar and starch, that's illness, folks. Carcinogens, cancer, not going to get, okay. So if you don't have some health goals, it's not about being skinny. It's not about that. I'm not skinny. I'm stocky, but I'm pretty darn healthy. I will lose more weight because I'm working out more, but it's not about me being skinny. I might not have any energy as skinny. I don't know. But it's about being healthy and fit so you have vitality. You know what will work for you. If you don't take care of yourself, we're very limited in life. That's all I'll say. And I'm not a health nut. Financial goals. Be very specific. How much you want to earn, how much you want to save, how much you want to invest. Be very specific. Now, I would recommend, how many of you are commission salespeople and or, okay, you need to write a goal that really motivates you and turns you on for earnings that you probably don't know how you're going to get there. But how doesn't count because the subconscious mind figures out how. When you write it down, the mind goes to work. I'm only standing here because I was a dreamer and a visionary. Now I was an ordinary guy from the wrong side of the tracks. I told you that. But I had big dreams and big goals, and many of them have happened. But I had the vision. And now I have a new vision for different areas of my life, including the business. Now finally, very personal, might have some meaning. I have a page of Christmas goals. And one day somebody said, "Can I see your goal book?" And I said, "Now why would a grown man," this is 1992 I wrote it, "why would you have a page of Christmas goals? I'm just curious." I said, I've never told anybody, but as a child my father was drunk the first 21 Christmas Eves of my life and didn't come home. So we didn't have Christmas. I had a crying mother. My father would come home at 2 in the morning and scream and yell and rant and rave. That's not Christmas. It was very painful. And I really resented the hell out of that. Pardon me. I really resented that. That the stress of children worrying if their father's going to come home at Christmas. And so finally, when I was 21, I got my brother and we went to my dad's work, and I was then finally bigger than my dad. He beat me up when I was little, but I was bigger than he was. And I said, Dad, you're not going to the bar today. You're not going to the bar. We're here. You're coming home. I'll follow you. You're not going to the bar. We're going to have our first ever sober Christmas Eve. And he swore and ran and raved and came home. An hour later, he calmed down. My mother we had Christmas Eve. I'm like 21. So, I always resented Christmas time. It was so damn painful. So I go to hear Wayne Dyer speak. And there's about 2,000, and Wayne Dyer's brilliant, in my opinion. Just brilliant. Goodness, off the chart. He and Deepak and a few others. And he was speaking, it was a spiritual conference, and there were a lot of ACOAs, adult children of alcoholics. And he held up a button. He said, I know you can't read this, everybody, but I'm going to read it to you. It says, for all of you, how many of you had difficult childhoods? And 2,000 people raised their hand. He said, I want to read this button to you. And he said, it says, it's never too late to have a happy childhood. He said, I'm going to repeat that. I never heard anything. He said, it's never too late to have a happy childhood. So for all of us that didn't have a happy childhood, now he didn't have a father. Wayne Dyer never met his father. Years later, he discovered that Melvin Dyer was in a grave in Mississippi. He stood on the grave for 2 hours and swore and ran and raved and finally forgave him. He never met the man who abandoned he and his mother and his brother. It's never too late to have a happy childhood. And that really impacted me. And I thought, well, doggone it. I think I'm going to go enjoy Christmas now. So I wrote a whole page of Christmas goals. And I've gone around the world at Christmas time to sing song, in the square in Vienna and Salzburg, which is my favorite place in the world, Christmas. And so that's why those were there. So just a thought, if there's something that was extremely painful for you, maybe you could go do it when? Now. Now, if you wanted to be a ball player and you're 45, might not could be the same. And one of the ladies, you want to be a tennis champion, maybe you're 40, 45, you might not be able to, but you can play tennis. You can go play. You can go to tennis matches. You can be part of tennis. You can learn how to referee. You see what I'm saying? You can always get in the game of life. Because highly effective people are always proactive. So what I'm going to ask you to do there is I want you to write 100 goals and dreams. How many of you wrote down those different areas? And you've got spiritual, and you got family, and you got career, and you got health, and you got financial, and you got contribution. And I would just say that you will get more out of life if you go out and give more to those who don't have a lot. That's all I will say. Doesn't matter what the charity is. I've recruited a lot of people to do some of the things we do at Christmas. We go door to door downriver to families that don't have trees and don't have gifts. And people, just this year we had 70 people. I was one of 3 Santa Clauses. That's really a treat. But I was one of 3 Santa Clauses, and people were so touched. You got to call me next year. Days later, they couldn't express why they felt so good about themselves. I believe highly effective people give first. You give the service and the friendship and the love and the support. So maybe you get out and give yourself away a little bit more. So how many of you will write 100 goals whenever you get to it? A couple weeks, couple months. And you want to forget, what do you want to forget, everybody? You absolutely have to forget how. And you want to write 100 goals, and we want to create a very compelling future. Now, if we were to, I don't say this very often, but I was thinking, if we were to break down life to its simplest form, it would be thoughts become things. How many have ever heard that before? I mean, if you were to break it down. Now, when we say thoughts, that means thinking and feeling, because the power is always in the feeling. How many of you ever had the experience of being stressed and then going for a walk or exercise and working out and feeling much better. So, just remember that our feelings create our life, if we want to bottom line it. Our feelings create our life. There's no matter, So in other words, you want to do whatever you need to do to feel good or positive or happy or grateful or enthusiastic 51 to 60% of the time. You don't have to do it all the time. Now, I meditate every morning of my life. I visualize, I meditate, I pray in my own way. The greatest formula ever, Mr. Carnegie discovered it living in daytight compartments one day at a time. When we look at our lives, we are looking at a perfect mirror reflection of our beliefs and our feelings. That is not a critic. I don't have a perfect life. I have challenges, but I take responsibility and I address them. So when we look at our life, there's no mystery. It's a perfect mirror reflection, no mistakes, of what we believe and what we feel. Now, the very best way to change your life is to not resist that, because it's true whether you believe it or not, is to not resist it, but change your feelings. You can do that by being grateful on a daily basis. Now, anybody can do that. Being grateful for what you have. Being grateful for the parents who raised you. Oh, I know they weren't perfect. I don't know many people got perfect parents. Quote. To be really grateful that they cared about you and clothed you and fed you and your friends. And if you have children and you're divorced, how about the former spouse that may have been a part of having those children, although that's just a wild guess. I know people hate their spouses. Adore their kids, hate their spouse. I can't get that. Now, could someone be angry at a spouse who drank or gambled? Yes. But certainly, if you love your kids, somebody else had something to do with it. So maybe you could be grateful. Because I am telling you the two fastest ways to change your life are to put in new information and let go. And if you are grateful and you drop judgments, you will become much happier. You will make more money. You will live longer. You will be more attractive. Your skin will glow. You will be smarter. And I will say it again. I will say that again. By being grateful and dropping judgments. If you stop judging, then you never have to forgive anybody, because everybody just does what they do. I'm not making light of unacceptable behavior. But see, judgments are negative energy in whose body? Everybody. That's why we're only the 35th healthiest country in the world. All the judgment and all the negativity and all that stuff in the press and the talk shows, trash parents, trash teenagers. You don't want to be part of any of that. How many of you would like an idea for increasing your income? Be grateful for every check, every sale, every dollar. Now, if that sounds trivial, I apologize. Because, see, what happens is, if we're in a slump, what do we focus on? The slump. What do we feel the feelings of? What do we complain about? What are we putting energy into? And the only thing that can continue is the slump. I'm not saying it's easy, but I'm saying sometimes we have to get back to where we used to be when we were on a high and things were rolling. To be grateful for every deal, every listing, every quote, every opportunity. And that energy. And then to be grateful for that you're going to realize your goals. Because people don't do that. They don't say, thank you, God, for this goal I'm going to achieve this year. Thank you that I'm going to meet the love of my life. Thank you that I'm going to get closer to my kids. Thank you, God, that I'm getting younger every year. I mean, people don't think that way. They're waiting for it to happen. Then they'll be grateful. That's too late. Because whatever you do not appreciate will begin to wither and die, whether it's your money supply, your health, your career, or your marriage, or your relationship. Whatever you do appreciate will grow and thrive, whether it's your kids, or your health, or your relationship, or your career, or your money supply. It's just one of the greatest principles in the world. So, how many of you have things you can give thanks for? Then do it tonight. And especially, give thanks for somebody that would not be your first choice. Somebody who hurt you, did a bad deal, divorced you, left you, cheated on you. You know, it's not easy. But you see, our energy creates our life. See, the universe doesn't understand. Let's see. They were miserable as a marriage partner. Of course you hate them. But that's no problem. You're going to be healthy. You're going to be vibrant. You're going to be rich. It's not a fact. The universe doesn't understand that. The law of cause and effect says what we carry around inside manifests in our life, regardless of the reasons we have. So that's the only reason that's in it. So gratitude, now it's part of my life. It's part of my meditation every day. I mean, I do have wonderful people in my life, and I really am grateful, and they know I'm grateful. So, let us move on here. Tony Robbins, focus equals reality. Now what that means is, whatever we repeatedly focus on, think about, feel, expect, becomes reality. It doesn't matter if it's something new. It doesn't matter if nobody in the family's ever done it. Focus equals reality. Now here's the problem with focus. You'll, like the newspapers, if you focus on lack, since whatever you focus on expands, what do you get more of? If you're in sales, don't you dare hang around with anybody who's talking about how bad business is. It's too expensive. Don't even think about it. Are there challenges? Yes. What do challenges mean? Challenges mean you got to learn more. Maybe you need to take a sales course. Maybe you need to study more real estate or selling insurance or study from somebody who's doing it. Hire a coach. I've had 10 coaches. I got my money back 1,000 times over. 1,000 times over for the thousands I invested. But what I'm saying is, you cannot focus on what is not working in your life because it will never go away. People blame their parents for their childhood. They're miserable at 60. They're on their third marriage. That's falling apart. They're still miserable. Now, they didn't understand that holding on to that grudge runs their whole life. And I understand that from a long time ago. So what I'm saying is, whatever we focus on expands. Problems? How many of you have problems? And I have some. Now, the best way to deal with problems is to search for solutions and answers, because there's no negativity in that. Plus, with 18 billion brain cells, if you ask your subconscious mind to give you a solution and you keep asking, it will give you a solution. While you're shopping, it may wake you up in the middle of the night, in the shower, at a party. Whatever you focus on, the mind responds to. Whatever you focus on, the mind responds to. And so, if there's something you're unhappy about, shift it. Shift it. And look for a solution. Or look for an opportunity to grow beyond it so you never go through it again. Just a thought. See, whatever you focus on expands. So when you focus on positives, guess what you get more of? If you really appreciate your customers, really appreciate them, look for extra ways to say thank you, they'll refer you, and you'll get more customers. Do you know what happens to little children when they're praised and appreciated? They glow, they blossom, they thrive. You know what happens to little children when they're criticized? They wither and die. So do big children. So see, whatever you focus on expands. So why don't you make a mental note today, tonight when you go home, tomorrow at the latest. Make a list of all the things in your life that are positive. Just make a list. If you believe in God, say, thank you, God. Thank you for this person who agreed to marry me and raise these kids. Thank you for my best friend for all these years. Thank you for my mom and dad who struggled, and so many of our parents struggled and raised us. They got us out of the house. We're dressed. We're alive. They did their job. So that would be a really good way to start. Now, I'm a real gratitude guy, and every day I count my blessings. And God knows I have a lot. I don't have a perfect life. I got a couple friends who have perfect lives. I don't have a perfect life. But I have an enormous amount to be grateful for. I mean, I went through it yesterday. I mean, just beyond words. Just my best friends and my daughter. The fabulous woman in my life. I got a career that I love. I mean, I found a career that I love when I was 37 years old. I just love this. More than I could ever say. I love to travel. Go to beautiful hotels and the client pays. Okay, anyway. The more you focus and look for opportunity, it will find you. If you don't have enough business, the question is, how do I find more opportunity? Maybe I join a network, maybe I go to a network. I belong to a network in 8 cities. It's just amazing the clients I get from that network. I go twice a month. SNG network. There are others that are wonderful. I'm not saying one's better than another. I mean, I think SNG is fabulous. But the point is, whatever you look for in life, you'll find. If you believe all women are nags, you'll find one after another. That may sound smart. It's true. You think all men cheat? Guess what? They do as far as you're concerned. I'm not being sarcastic. Whatever you believe is a self-fulfilling prophecy, and life will continue to mirror to you that what you believe is correct, when in fact, neither of those are correct. So the formula is when challenged. How many of you have challenges? Now I'm going to give you the greatest formula ever devised to break out of challenges. It's from Tony Robbins. I credit him. Now he never put it in writing. I put it in writing. It's brilliant. When you have a challenge or a difficulty, if you want a positive solution, ask a positive question. It's brilliant, as simple as it sounds. The mind responds to the input you give it. So let's suppose you have a difficulty. How many of you have a challenge in your life? And you know the answer is not always obvious. A lot of times we don't know how we created it, and a lot of times we don't know how to get out of it. I understand. But our subconscious mind, given direction, will find a solution. Now, if someone says, you know, all men are jerks, you can't trust them, they all cheat, your subconscious mind will never point out that hundreds of thousands and millions of women are happily married to men. If a guy believes, you know, women are nice when you meet them, but they're all nags, you'll never attract somebody who's sweet and wonderful, accepting, as long as you have that belief. So my point is, we always want to be positively focused. This is a brilliant formula. So you have a difficulty. I have challenges. I bet you have some. Ask yourself positive questions. First question, what could I learn from this? How many of you have lost important sales? Now, what could you learn? Number one, it all starts with better questions. It's the greatest skill in life. It's 70% of life at least, the art of asking questions. Selling, relationships, significant others, kids. So what can I learn from this? Well, maybe I need to learn to be better at questions. Maybe I learn to be better at evidence. Maybe I need to go to some of the pros in our company and find out how they sell value, right? If you had a relationship breakup, how many of you ever had a relationship breakup? Okay, that's about 80%. There's something you could learn. It's not the other person. They're a mirror of your belief and vice versa. So there's no blame here. Because people will blame their spouse. Well, he was an alcoholic and it was all him and he died. Oh, how was it you married an alcoholic? What? Anyway, so it's a positive question that gives you positive feedback. You start asking your mind what you could learn about a difficult situation. It'll work while you sleep. And it'll tell you what you can learn, and you can learn the lesson and not go through it again. Number two, what is my opportunity here? You lose a big sale, there's a good question. As saying, poor me, I was unlucky, why do I get the bad breaks? What's the opportunity? If you had pain in a relationship, what is your opportunity here? To love yourself more, to develop relationship skills which are not taught in school, right? To develop a spiritual life. Now, I haven't mentioned this in years, there was a statistic that I verified, 10, 15 years ago, that was the single most astonishing statistic I've ever heard, and if anybody knows more about it, you tell me, because I haven't mentioned it many years, is that, the divorce rate's 50% first marriages, 60% for second, 83% for third. So much with I haven't met the right one yet. But anyway, couples that pray together every day, the divorce rate is less than 5%. But you can believe it. I mean, if you think you can believe it. If you're praying with somebody, you're not going to be criticizing them very often. If they don't put away their shirts or the meal isn't perfect. I'm just giving an example, the fantastic power of positive focus. What is my opportunity here? So wherever you have a challenge, ask yourself and then write and write and write. That way you stay positively focused as opposed to beating yourself up or worse yet, blaming anybody else. Because you can't grow past that. Number three, what could be positive about this? How many of you have ever been through a divorce? Now that would be an interesting question to ask, wouldn't it? You got divorced. What could be positive about this?
I'm divorced.
I hope that's not on the recording. Yeah. Okay. Where was I before I was interrupted? Yeah. So, somebody gets divorced, or you break up. I have a friend who was with a guy for 18 years, off again, on again, off again, and they broke up. And that's a tough deal. That's a lot of your life to devote to somebody, I guess. What could be positive about this? Well, what could be positive is you could take responsibility without putting yourself down. Now, that's the key. You could learn how you could be more loving, more supportive, a better listener. You understand? In other words, it all begins with us. It's not the other person. And so all I want to say to you is, how many of you can use any of these three questions? Could we see the hands? Because what it does is, you don't get stuck for weeks or months in anger or resentment or blame of others or self, right? But most importantly, it triggers your fabulous, unlimited subconscious mind. 18 billion brain cells. Now, the truth about life is you can have it all. And so can I. Now, I don't have it all, but we can have it all. I think I'm on my way. I'm not there. You can have a joyous, wonderful relationship. You can have a great relationship with your kids if you got kids. You can be prosperous or rich. You can be healthy. You can have great friends. And you can contribute. Have a wonderful life. Now, I don't know about a perfect life, but that's a pretty good life. If you're happy, fulfilled, and prosperous, how many of you would say that is a good life? Yes. So, we can all have that. And sometimes it's just a matter of a small shift. Just a matter of a small shift. So, thank you, Tony Robbins. How many of you can use this idea? I think it's brilliant. Write down the answer when it comes to you. And I will just say one more time, if you have a problem in life, do not rehearse it because it will not go away and you'll attract it again. If you've been unlucky in love, you do not want to trash the opposite sex or the other person. If you do, get ready for another one. I know that's heavy, but it's really true. You don't have to think they're the most wonderful person who ever lived, but you do want to bless them and wish them their highest good and take responsibility that you picked them without blaming you. Now that's how we stay empowered. So, we want to find solutions. What do? Everybody? We ask what? We ask positive questions. This is something I created. Now maybe other people do it. I don't know. How many of you have ever written down a financial goal or a business goal that you did not accomplish? Could we see the hands? So writing it down is not enough. So the best way to set a goal, an important goal, is to see through the goal, to see the payoffs or the results or the things you'll be experiencing when you have it. See, it isn't the money that you want. It isn't the sales results. It might be a big savings program, a dream house, financial freedom, vacations, the kids in private school. See, that's what you want. So here's what I want you to do on the back page. Now think for a minute. I want you to think about your major business goal, not 10, 15 years from now, let's say 2 to 3 years. You don't even have to, I mean your major goal. Now I know what mine is. So what is a major business goal? It could be a certain number of sales, it could be an income, but I want you to write something if you're in business. What is a big business goal that would be a thrill for you, even though you don't know how to get it? Because remember, we forget how. Okay? So would you write that down? Don't get to it another day, please. Write it down. How many of you wrote something down? Okay, now, if you need to, close your eyes, if you need to. The goal is yours. You've got it. What's going on in your life? What do you buy? What do you enjoy? What do you use? Material goal, travel, be debt free. I want you to write these things down. Maybe you get 3 or 4, maybe you get 5 or 6. When the goal is yours, what are some of the payoffs or rewards, either personal or professional, that will be yours when you have the goal? Now that's seeing through the goal. So write a couple down. If you can't see rewards or payoffs, it's probably a pipe dream goal. I mean, if you really felt it, you'd know doggone well some of the wonderful things that would accrue to you when you got it. So you want to see through it, so that you can then start seeing the result instead of worrying about how you're going to get there, because those are very different energies. Don't say I'm going to do it later. Just do a couple now. For me personally, which may trigger some ideas, I really do love travel. I got a couple of really special travel goals. My daughter has 23. She wants me to take her on. We're going to negotiate that. That's a lot of trips. But some really special places I want to go in the world. Number one, I'm going to give more money to the two charities, especially the abused women's shelter near Marygrove College. Women and children running away in the middle of the night to keep from being beaten up. I can't even believe it happens. But so how many of you wrote down at least a couple payoffs or benefits? Okay, and keep writing. And when you think about it, see, that's what you want. It isn't that you want the goals so you can say to people, I did it. You want the payoffs. Now, here's another thought. I read an article a couple years ago, and I apologize. I cannot think of the guy's name, and in the last week I just couldn't come up with it. And he wrote a book about thinking beyond your goals to your paradise on earth. And he said, if you really want to expand your thinking, ask yourself, what would your paradise on earth be? And don't even consider being realistic. I thought, wow. I mean, I had big goals. Well, I came up with 12 things. 10 of them I had not thought of before, for whatever reason, that would literally be paradise for me. Anybody like that idea? So make a headline somewhere, my paradise on earth. Now forget about what your parents said was possible. Forget about your past. Your past and my past is just a mere reflection of what we believed at the time. It is not a factor in our future unless our beliefs stay the same. If our beliefs stay the same, nothing changes. One of the reasons it's good to be a dreamer, you know, when I was in school, at one of the Catholic schools, one of the nuns said, Michael Wickett, stop daydreaming. Stop daydreaming? Don't stop daydreaming. You want to daydream, night dream, afternoon dream, early morning dream, middle of the night dream. How many of you heard that? Don't ever stop dreaming. Dreaming is just thinking about what might be possible, because if you don't think it, you can't have it. If you don't see it, whatever it is, it's not possible. Nothing ever shows up. Everything is attracted in by the beliefs we hold here and here. Now, one of the most powerful of all principles is the mastermind principle from Think and Grow Rich. How many of you ever read Think and Grow Rich? Now, the mastermind principle was based on the experience of Henry Ford, Dearborn, Michigan. A young unknown, no money, no connections. How did he build the Ford Motor Car Company? Henry Ford formed a support mastermind alliance with Harvey Firestone, Luther Burbank, and Thomas Edison. 3 brilliant people. And they took young Henry Ford under their wing, and they believed in him, and they supported him, and they encouraged him before he ever believed in himself. Now, there's a principle that says you become part of what you're around. If you're spending time around people always griping and always complaining, you find yourself at the unconscious level griping and complaining. You spend time around people who are optimistic, you find yourself being optimistic. Who is responsible for who we hang around with? Everybody? Yeah. Now, I've been in a mastermind group, a success support group, for over 30 years. I've been in several, but my oldest one is 30 years. We were just together last night. And I am telling you, it is probably the single best way to access your deep personal power. To create miracles. Now, the word miracles, it means something we don't understand. So I hope you're not offended by the use of the word. If you are, then we'll say to create wonderful outcomes. Because it's done unto us as we believe. Isn't that in the Bible somewhere? And it's true. So what we hold to be true for ourselves here and here, that's what is drawn into our life. That's what's created in our life. The value of a success support group or a mastermind group is like-minded people can see things for you and I that we can't see for ourselves. You with me on that? Everything in our life is what we have seen for ourselves. It's not good, it's not bad, it's not right or it's wrong, it's just true. If you surround yourself with positive people, and maybe you're in a support group 3 or 4 times a month, and they're seeing great things for you, they're seeing your goals achieved for you, they're believing for you, at the unconscious level, it helps you to believe at a higher level. Now, I've got over 30 years experience in this. It's just one of the great principles of all time. And so, it's called a mastermind group in Think and Grow Rich. I'm not crazy about the term. It sounds kind of cultish. I call it a success support group. My friend Don Tocco and I have been, it used to be Don Tocco, Lou Achille and I, we worked together in the 70s. And we met every Monday morning for breakfast at the Denny's restaurant. It's not there anymore, but the Denny's at Crooks and Big Beaver. And we went to church to hear a lesson about the mastermind group. Didn't know anything about it. Had never read the book. And there was a great lesson on the mastermind group, how it's the very best way to channel personal power. And I thought, wow. So the 3 of us formed a success support group, a mastermind group. We met every Monday morning at Denny's for a couple years. And we would have breakfast and we would have social time. And Don would lead the group. He was the strongest personality. He probably still is. And we would go around and we would take steps to be responsible and ask to be able to use our deeper mind. And everybody would pick maybe 2 goals. And all of us had a business goal because we were all selling construction. And Lou Achille had a goal to be a great Dale Carnegie instructor, part-time. Don had a goal to take the business to 70 million, something like that. I had a goal to be successful because I had not been extremely successful. I wanted to be a good salesperson. And I wanted to move to a nicer neighborhood because I was raised in poverty. And when you're raised in poverty, you expect it at a deep level. Do you know what I mean? If you grow up in an unhappy home at a very deep level, that's all you know, and it's easy to expect and then create it in your life. So we started to meet every Monday, and we would support each other and believe for each other and paint word pictures for each other, and we did this for a couple years, and we'd get these fabulous feelings that we could do anything. And guess what? We did. Lou Achille doubled his income, more than he ever made before. He became one of the finest Dale Carnegie instructors that has ever lived. He became renowned as a phenomenal Dale Carnegie instructor. He went on from there to speak and train all over the world in his own business, Lou Achille. I just saw him a couple weeks ago for the first time in 10 years. Don's business went to 70 million, then it went to 100 million. That's just with a couple of people. And Don wanted to give speeches to kids, and he now... you know the Hugh O'Brien Youth Foundation? Does anybody, Hugh O'Brien who played Wyatt Earp? Okay. Well, Don has keynoted the kids. The Hugh O'Brien leadership is sophomores from all over the world, several hundred kids. He's gone to Washington every year for 20 years and keynoted it. And he achieved all his financial goals. And he ended up in a house on the lake in Bloomfield, which was his goal. And so 3 people, 2 of us from ordinary backgrounds. I don't think Lou was from an ordinary background. Don and I were from dysfunctional, alcoholic, ordinary backgrounds. Changed our lives by supporting and believing in each other. And it is so profoundly powerful. Here is why. People can see things for us that we can't see. And it's easy for people to believe for us in things we may not quite be able to believe in ourselves, because you got to believe it 100% for it to happen. 99% is 0. I sort of believe I can have a happy marriage. You never have one. I sort of believe I can be rich. Never happened. So the value of a support group is people help you to believe. I mean, I'm not being modest when I tell you, if you look at my background, there's no way I could be standing here. I was such a dysfunctional kid. Such an unhappy kid with no skills. Couldn't concentrate. ADD. There's no way. But I've been in a support group for well over 30 years and visualized the income I would reach, and then my own business, and go around the world and travel and get a little bit of renown. It all happened. So I credit, Don and and Lou Achille and some of my partners. But this is a principle that probably can change and empower your life more than any other single thing. Because, as it says in the Bible, it's done unto us as we, it begins with a B, believe. Beliefs come true. Whether they're positive or negative, good or bad, right or wrong, it doesn't matter. Whether they're freeing or painful, beliefs come true. So when you look at your life, and when I look at my life, it's a mirror of our beliefs. So when I get divorced 19 years ago, knowing that principle, I thought, now that's interesting. My aunts and uncles screamed and yelled and struggled and divorced, and my parents screamed and yelled, and I ended up divorced. So I said, I think I need to change the perception. Now, I never was down on women. Never. My mother raised 3 boys from a wheelchair. I have a couple aunts that raised 5, 6 kids married to an alcoholic. I have loved and I have respected at the highest level women all of my life, because I have seen the amazing things that they can do. And so when that divorce happened, I wanted to discover what I needed to learn. What perceptions did I have that supported that? And boy, did I learn. I grew and I evolved and I raised my self-esteem. I totally forgave her because she was a great person. Just because we didn't get along, it doesn't mean she was wrong. She's a fabulous mother to the most important person in my life, which is my daughter. And so I changed my perception. That's why I had 10 coaches. I changed my perception wherever necessary. If I become aware of something where I have any negativity or judgment, I'm going to work on that. I'm not going to tell anybody about it. I'm going to work on it. Because whatever you and I perceive is our reality. How many of you have ever thought, now just be honest on this, so we're going to close in a minute. How many of you ever thought relationships between men and women are challenging? How many of you ever thought that? Okay, that's about 70%. Difficult. Problematic. Miraculous if it works. Whoa, but now, if you believe that, guess what? It's true. It's true. If you believe women are a problem and men are a problem and relationships don't work, it's absolutely true. So let me just say lovingly, this is a principle I live my life by. See, I can own everything in my life and be responsible, but I won't put myself down. Now, I might feel bad a little bit, but I'm not going to beat myself up, and I'm not going to blame anybody. I'm going to learn from it. I conditioned my mind a long time ago. If I have a challenge, I want to learn from it. Because if I blame anybody, myself or anybody else, I'm stuck with it. Right? So, why don't you look at your life, I mean, anything that isn't working for you, and change your perception? Now, how many have got at least one valuable idea? More than one. That's $20 extra at the door. No. Now, the number one characteristic of highly effective people is they're proactive. We just had a few principles today. The ideas on the red card, Tony Robbins, brilliant. You do not want to spend more than one day negatively focused. No matter how long, you don't. I understand things happen and they can feel very, very bad and they can feel painful and disappointed, but maybe a day or two, but that's it. The red card, immediately refocus and start writing what you can learn, what your opportunity is, and especially what could be a benefit. Now, what could be positive? Let's suppose somebody has a challenge in selling, right? If you're not making enough sales, you probably need to learn how to sell better. It's the highest paid profession. It's the third highest paid profession in the world. It's the highest paid profession in business. But 20% of the people bring in 80% of the business, and 10% bring in 90%. So even though it's the highest paid area in business, 75 to 80% of the people struggle. Why? Because they never learned the key principles. So keep learning. I want to thank you for coming out. I will close with this thought. About 15 years ago, I got a phone call, and my secretary was out at lunchtime. I said, "Hello, Michael Wickett." She said, "Yes. My name is ... I'm calling from the women's prison in Ypsilanti, Michigan." And I said, "What?" She said, "I'm calling from the women's prison in Ypsilanti, Michigan to tell you you're very popular here at the prison." Those were her exact words. I said, "Just a second." I said, "I have relatives there, but I have never been in the women's prison." She said, "No." She said, "No. She said, Mr. Wickett, somebody donated some of your CD programs. There's about 60 women. They have a support group and they love you." I said, "Would you say that again?" She said, "There's 60 women here that just love you." Well, actually, they love your principles. They think you're decent, but they love your principles. And she said, "I just called to say thank you." I said, "What was your name again?" She said, "I'm Dr. Sandrea Smith. I'm the psychologist here at the prison." I said, "I'm speechless. I mean, I've never got a call like this. I mean, this is really serious. I've made a difference at the women's prison." She said, "Yes." I said, "Thank you so much." She said, "Now, that's not the real reason I called. I said, well, Dr. Smith, what is the real reason you called? She said, we would love it if you would come to the prison and speak. I said, that's what I do. I would love to come to the prison and speak. She said, now, I don't know how to tell you this, but we don't have a budget. Ha, ha, ha. And we can't pay you. And I said, oh. I said, well, Dr. Smith, I'm awfully busy. You know, you don't want to do something. She said, I don't mean to offend you. I said, you know what? You didn't offend me. I said, I'm thrilled. I never got a phone call like this. You know? Maybe I am making a tiny bit of difference in the world. I just wanted to contribute to people's lives. I said, I'll tell you what. This is spring, April. I said, call me in November. I said, December is the slowest month of the year. Maybe I could come down and donate a speech. She said, oh, Mr. Wickett, you're wonderful. I said, well, would you say that one more time? She said, Mr. Wickett. Catholic school, hearing what a jerk I was every day, I needed some strokes. Sister Rose Delors told the senior class, Michael Wickett, you're a lazy bum, you'll never amount to anything. Whole senior class, I needed some strokes. She said, you're really wonderful, I'll call you. And I said, I want you to know, Dr. Smith, how grateful I am for this call. I said, I'm just honored. You call me in November, maybe we can work something. So I hang up the phone, I forget about it, right? 4 days later, my manager, Jan Foster, said, there's a package here from the women's prison. I go over, and I said, the nerve of those people sending the CDs back because I wouldn't go speak. She said, well, what is it? I said, I don't know. I said, yeah, there's no noise. She said, it's not CDs. She said, open it. I said, thank you. Another woman giving me orders, yes. And anyway, so I go in my office, I open it, it's letters. Many of them perfumed. 7- and 8-page letters from the women at the prison. Dear Mr. Wickett, I want to thank you from all my heart. You've touched my life by sharing that I could be somebody. Dear Mr. Wickett, I hated my father, and listening to yours, I forgave him, and now I'm feeling like a free person. And just on and on and on and on. And by the time you read 7 or 8 letters, 6, 7 pages, saying how wonderful you are and what a difference you make, I said, call the women's prison at Ypsilanti. It's Dr. Smith. Get the psychologist on the phone now. A minute later, said she's on the phone. It's Sandrea Smith. I said, that's it. I picked up the phone and I said, hello, Sandrea, how are you? She said, you got the package, huh? I said, when can I come and speak? She said, we can't pay you. I said, you've already paid me. I said, I would be honored. I said, how could I not? Now, I'm an emotional person. I said, how could I not come? It would be my privilege. I said, you talk to the warden, and I was really emotional. I guess I'm feeling it again. I said, you talk to the warden. You give me a couple dates. I said, I will create handouts. I will stay, whatever I can do. I mean, for any of us to have an opportunity to give something back. And she called me back and she said, well, we got a date here in about a month, and the warden's excited, and I'm excited, the women are excited, and I said, I'm excited. She said, now, we don't know how, we've got 350 women here, we don't know how many, a lot of them don't like men. She did say, I said, well, that happens in and out of prison. But, well, it does. It does? Okay. So I said, I've never given a speech for numbers. It doesn't matter how many. I said, I'm honored to come. Boy, did I feel it. So we picked a date. I thought, now what the heck am I going to talk about? So I thought, I'll talk about personal responsibility, because if you blame anybody, you're stuck. You can't change your life. I don't care if you're in prison, out of prison. There's all kinds of prisons. If you blame anybody, you're stuck. And then I'll talk about a can-do attitude and how all of us can change, because, our God self, our higher self, all the talents we've been given, they're just there waiting to be used. How many brain cells? 18 billion brain cells. That's enough for several lifetimes. So I'm introduced by a woman named Mary Glover, serving 3 life terms for murder. That's who hugged me and introduced me. 3 life terms from. So there's about. It's okay. She killed some man, but she did. True story. So she sued the state of Michigan she started setting goals, sued the state of Michigan for the right to get a hearing, and really got the sentence changed and lots of things. So I launch into this speech, and I'm not sure how this is going to work. Now I'm thinking, and I have to admit this. These people, are they going to remember anything I say? I regret that but I did 1986. It's a while ago. Okay. So they respond, and they laugh, and they applaud. And when I finished that speech, everybody was on their feet, and they gave me a thunderous, standing, stomping ovation. I'm hoping for one today. And I stood on a hot summer night, July. I stood at the back of the room, and 40 women lined up. 40. I was there an hour and a half. 40 women. We're talking about teeth have been knocked out by the pimp or some guy, faces slashed. I mean, people that really had been harmed by life, and you could see it on them. And they're hugging me and they're kissing, and I'd never had an experience like that. I mean, all this love, all this thank you coming back. It was the most overwhelming thing that ever happened in my whole life. These people saying, Mr. Wickett, tears streaming down their faces. Tears streaming down their faces. Mr. Wickett, we think you're an angel. Would you say that again? Would you send a note to Sister Rose DeLorean and tell her that? It was the greatest moment that I probably had ever had in my life. Certainly ever in my business at that time. I felt like I had really made a difference. I felt so good. And I finally got in the car, was driving home, felt so good I thought I would float through the roof of the car, and I remembered the old adage that said, 2 women looked out from behind prison bars. One saw the mud, the other saw the stars. So when you look at life, you see all the mud, all the dirt, all the problems, all the difficulty, all the crummy people that have done things to you, or do you see the blessings and the positives? Because in the words of the immortal philosopher, Flip Wilson, what you see is what you get. What you see is what you get. I really sincerely hope that this had some value for you. You have unlimited God-given potential. It's just a matter of doing what works. So, I want to close with the positive expectation pledge. How many of you will join me in closing with a positive? Raise your right hand. Repeat after me. I expect the best.
I expect the best.
Every day in every way.
Every day in every way.
I'm getting better and better.
I'm getting better and better.
Every day in every way.
Every day in every way.
I'm feeling better and better.
I'm feeling better and better.
Yes, I can.
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 Hey, God bless you. Have a great year. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.